All right, welcome to Ducks and Pucks. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddy Jones. And today we have a special guest for you guys. You know him as Ref You Suck. His name is Brian. He runs the company, and he's going to be joining us here in just a second. We're going to talk about the new moves by the Ducks with Ritchie and Maroon being signed, the Selanne news out of Finland, and we'll also take some fan questions for you. So I'm going to introduce to you now Brian Gilmore. He runs Ref You Suck. Thanks for coming on the show, Brian.
Hey guys, good to be here.
So, Brian, you started Ref You Suck a few years ago, and why don't you just tell us how it got going? Because it's been pretty popular now with all the the tweets with the anti-ref comments.
Well, we got started back in 2008. Basically, what happened was we were at a game back in, I want to say this is '07 when we first started going to Ducks games. '06, '07 season, actually. I picked the right season to start liking the Ducks. And
Def-
Ref You Suck, if you remember our team back then, we were probably the highest penalized team in the league. And uh, we got the shaft quite often, but we just had a amazing penalty killing, which the rest is history. But anyway, "Ref You Suck" chant was something you'd hear multiple times a night, every night. Didn't matter who we played, and that was just a part of the experience for me of being a new hockey fan. I was like, wow, this is so cool to hear a whole stadium, saying "Ref You Suck." I had never heard that before, and so one of the days I was driving home and I just did a search for it, and so I wonder if anyone ever made a T-shirt because obviously nobody owns that chant. It's universal. It's been around forever, and I couldn't find any shirts and I couldn't find any domains or anything. So I just said, well, I got a new side project. So I started coming up with T-shirt designs and started giving them away at Ducks games. And back then it was MySpace, and that's where I promoted my shirts. And from the MySpace audience, it started to grow to other fans and other teams, and that's when I just kind of had to slow down on being 24/7 Ducks and being more just Ref You Suck in general, to attract a wider audience and also other hockey teams. So fast forward to today, the Facebook thing and Twitter. Obviously, I'd say Twitter is probably where 90% of my sales come from. Um, we're up to 20,000 followers now, and I'd say 90% of those people are hockey fans. So what happens is every night that there's a game, my Twitter goes crazy, and anytime there's a missed call or a bad call, I find out about it. And what I do is I retweet those complaints out to the 20,000 followers, and then they retweet it, and the next thing you know, it's just a battle. Every night's a battle because fans never agree on the calls or the no calls, which makes it fun for me because I just get to get in there and mix it up, and I try to find the most offensive comments I could find to retweet that really gets everyone going, and and then every once in a while I throw in, okay, we're gonna have a $15 deal tonight, and if there was a lot of bad calls at night, I'll sell a lot more shirts. And sometimes the zebras do a good job, and I don't sell any shirts. So it's always different. But where I got my big shot, or my first, I guess, media attention was at a Ducks game. Uh, we had, see, we had a really terrible game one night against the Maple Leafs. It was the beginning of the season. They were on their worst starting streak ever. This might have been the 2008 season, um, and they had lost their first 7, 8, 9 games or something, and they just happened to be on one of those rare, one-time things where they come through Anaheim, and Anaheim had been winning every game or close to every game, and it just seemed like the refs were just not going to let us win that night, and I don't remember what the score was or anything, but the audience was so mad, and the "Ref You Suck" chants were running strong, and so I kind of took advantage of that. I said, let's have a referee protest because there was back-to-back games that weekend or whatever. So just through MySpace, I was able to get like 50 people to show up, and hold anti-referee signs in front of the Honda Center. And I didn't realize, like, for me, I thought it'd be a fun stunt, something to get the word out about my shirts, but at the same time give fans, a way to support the team in kind of a different way. I didn't realize it was going to get the attention it got. And so next thing I know, after our little 15-minute protest out on the corner of Catella and whatever that street is by the pond,
Right.
I gave everybody free shirts that came, and everyone was wearing their shirts. And I would say a decent amount of those people were season ticket holders, were big fans, and they wouldn't let us in. The ticket people or the ushers had been instructed not to let people wearing that shirt inside. And I couldn't believe it, because I wore a Ref You Suck shirt every game, every night. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is like the Ducks slogan. Like, everybody knows Ref You Suck. It's said every night. Who am I offending? And they just, well, it's new policy. It's considered to be an offensive slogan on a T-shirt. So we weren't very happy about that. And the funny thing is, my wife, she was even more mad than I was, and she's like, "There's no way, we're season ticket holders, and you can't treat us like this. We're your biggest fans. We're your biggest supporters, and you're gonna have to give us another shirt then if you want us to wear something else." And they said, "Okay, we'll do that." And they gave everybody free Duck shirts if they would not wear Ref You Suck, or you had to take it back to your car if you weren't willing to put a Duck shirt over your Ref You Suck shirt. So I made a few calls, and I talked to some lawyer friends, and they said, it's a private business. They can really make any kind of rules they want. They don't want to offend the fans, obviously, because that's their customers. But he goes, really, they can do whatever you want. But you know what? It's free speech, and most people are going to think it's free speech, because it's not like you have a 4-letter, it's not like you have a cuss word on your shirt.
Right.
So he said, he goes, if I were you, I'd write up a little press release and send it out, and who knows, somebody might run with it. And the next day I wrote something up. I explained the whole experience, and a writer from the sports section at the Orange County Register responded immediately and said, "We'd love to do an interview with you, and we're going to do like a full page thing on it." And I'm like, wow, okay, well, what do you want to know? And so I told him the whole story, and the next thing you know, I'm on the radio or television in Canada, on Sportsnet, and they wanted to know all about the story. And so my story just started spreading and spreading, and we were no way ready for the kind of publicity we had. The web servers that we were on crashed, all day long. We supposedly had 50,000 hits in a day, which I never saw that happen. But according to my web guy, he's like, you just melted the servers. Like, he's like, all our other customers were really pissed, because all their websites were also getting knocked down because the bandwidth or whatever. They didn't have the capacity to support that much attention. And I was on television, which is nationally syndicated in Canada. So all of a sudden, all of Canada listened to my story and wanted to know about refusuck.com. So that's kind of the jumping off point. That's when I realized, like, all right, I have something here that works with any sports fan. And, although I'm a Ducks fan personally, the shirts, don't reflect any one team. It's funny shirts. It's making fun of something that everybody at one time or another, can identify with or agree with. So that's the story.
No, and Brian, that's the thing that's been like amazing, talking about doing stuff on the blog and the stuff that you've helped me with too, and seeing, just the response to the people. When you've sold shirts, I mean, you've pretty much sold shirts in like the U.S., Canada. I mean, how many other places? I mean, I know it's been all over.
At almost every country. At one time or another, I've gotten orders from the weirdest places: Japan, Russia, actually Ireland, quite a few in different United Kingdom areas. Uh, there was one that Australia. That wasn't the weird one though. There was one that cost more to ship it there than the shirt costs, and the guy was still willing to order it. Um, so then I started debating whether I need to be making shirts in other languages because
Right.
obviously, referees are hated worldwide,
Worldwide. Yeah, worldwide.
especially when it comes to hockey. It just seems like those guys. I think there's a lot more room for error because hockey's such a fast game, and I mean, I know that people of every sport complain about refs, but for some reason, the hockey ones are a lot more passionate about um, the Zebras doing a bad job or missing something, that affects their team or their score.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would think especially in Canada too, because that is their sport.
Oh yeah, I've sold tons of shirts to Canada. When if you remember back when Tortorella got suspended in Vancouver,
Right.
I thought, man, I need to get on this because this is one of those stories that's gonna, be heard around the world. Um, and the guy that made the free torch shirts got shut down by the NHL or by I don't know if it was the NHL or the club, but he was told he couldn't make those shirts because it had Tortorella's face on it. It was kind of that famous photo of Tortorella pointing at the
Right.
ref or whatever, um, and so I got a hold of that guy and I said, I'd be willing to help you out. And I go, I'm gonna have to modify the design a little bit, but for the most part, we'll keep everything. And what I did was I just made a censored strip and put it across his eyes, and turned around and put it on my website, and paid him a commission off of it. And I never got a call from any lawyers or anything. So I think there's just whatever you're doing with the NHL or with any license thing, you just got to be careful with how um, referees. Nobody owns that name or that word. So as long as you're not stealing an actual logo or using somebody's property, um, it's kind of just a fun way to support or not support a team
Right.
or
Well, what's funny too is if you remember, I got a letter from the NHL too. You had helped me doing the shirts and doing some of the designs, and I had one that had a symbol, not of this. It wasn't the exact Stanley Cup, but it was similar. And the NHL came down on me. I mean, I didn't even sell any of the shirts, but I had just thrown it out there, and an attorney hit me up. I mean, he was actually a nice guy, and I was able to talk to him about it, but it just cracked me up because, like you said, you just one little thing, and then here you go. You got to be careful.
Yeah, well, they file their trademarks and their patents, and they should. They're a company, and they got to protect themselves. So I mean, I get it. It just like the Tortorella thing. It was just funny. It was funny to see free
Big
torts
time.
on a shirt when Vancouver got behind this guy so bad. They were so happy to finally have a coach that had some fire and was passionate, and that's why I just thought it was awesome. Going to the locker room might have been a bad call, but it sure made a
Right.
great story and a great T-shirt.
Speaking of your shirt, so which one has probably been the most popular shirt so far?
By far, the Ref You Suck hockey, the hockey referee character has definitely been by far the biggest seller. I've reprinted that design dozens of times.
Hmm.
After that would be the Sidney Crosby diver shirt. That
Right.
one's that one just came out, 6 months ago. It was actually a fan that came up with the design. A girl in New York who's a graphic designer, and she has a, a major hatred for Sidney Crosby. She's a Rangers fan, and and she says, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And sent it over, and I said, "I will put that on a shirt with your permission." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I hate Sidney Crosby. You gotta do it." So I threw it out there, and I couldn't believe it. It just sold like hotcakes. They still sell, even in the off season they sell. Um, so we're kind of gonna take a look at that as far as players go, and there's definitely players that are more hated than others, and so we're gonna have some fun hating on those players this year.
Well, yeah, I think Crosby's just one of those that, I mean, he's very, very popular, but he's just one of those that, you either love him or you hate him. I mean, he
Yeah.
scores a lot of goals, but I mean, he'll do his little diving routine too.
Oh yeah, and that's when you got a guy like that who makes big bucks and he's your franchise guy, and he trips over the blue line and gets the call every time. The fans eventually figure it out and go, come on, you can't protect or favor one player that much, or else it's going to backlash. And I think with Crosby, it has backlash. The guy is an amazing hockey player, but when you see the calls go his way over and over again, maybe not in the playoffs, he didn't have such a good time.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
Lundqvist helped him a little bit too.
yeah, just you could tell he was frustrated and kind of felt for the guy, because he's so, you can just see the guy's so used to getting his way, and then when it doesn't go his way, the guy just melts down. And it's, I guess it's kind of like a kid. If you spoil them too much and then you take it away, you're gonna have hell to pay.
Oh yeah, definitely. Speaking of other players, is there anybody in particular that you're thinking about making a shirt, or you just still kind of feeling it out, during the summer months?
Yeah, we have one design that's made, and it'll be released this season for the Sedins. The Sedins also have a pretty big reputation for diving, and so that has had some good response, some good feedback, and we've also had a lot of requests for a Dustin Brown dive shirt. So we're kicking that around as well. Um, he he definitely gets that guy. I mean, that guy knows how to hit, and he knows how to draw penalties like nobody's business. So that might be a good target for us. Um, I just let the fans kind of direct, because I don't follow every team. I read the
Right.
headlines, but um, I don't follow the rivalries. On the East like I do here.
Right.
Uh, like your San Jose shirt that you guys made was hilarious. I mean,
That was number
that
one.
until they win a cup, that shirt will sell every year.
Yeah, that's the number one shirt. Everybody cracks up about that one. So that one's been the best. I just got to come up with some other. I've got a few others that are going to be coming out, but not so much anti shirts. But I've got a few pro duck ones that I'm going to be bringing out probably the end of September when the season gets a little bit closer. Because like you had talked about, right now it's just there's such a lull, no hockey.
Yeah, it's hard right now, and sales go way down in the summer. They always do. I've been at this for a while now. That's 6 years now. So it's like that every year. Summer always slows down. That's when you got to retool, figure out what designs you want to keep, which ones you want to discontinue, and then decide who your next targets are going to be, and keep building that social media, because the Twitter hockey fans are crazy. They're out of their mind, and it's awesome. Love it.
It is very true. I mean, getting the updates and we talk about like the blog and stuff too. When something happens that's funny or controversial or whatever, you got to jump on that right away.
Oh yeah, and believe me, I've got a lot of reporters that love to. They know I retweet. I'm one of the only accounts that pretty much will read. I don't care if you have 5 followers. If you ran about a ref, I'll retweet you and give you your 5 seconds of fame.
Right. That's very true. I mean, you're always good about that, and then other people get in on the action, which is it's hilarious too because the other thing is on Twitter is usually if you're a hockey fan, I mean, there's people that have accounts that are hockey in general. But there's people that Duck fans are together, the Shark fans are together, the Kings fans are together. But as soon as they play each other and you get a few of their tweets going, then you get these battles going, and it's just hilarious.
Oh, it is, yeah, and there's some witty characters out there that, it's one thing, call out somebody for diving, but some of the lines I get, I'm like, holy cow, I got to make a book of these, because there are some hilarious chirps out there that these fans come up with. I'm like, man, I wish I was sitting next to you at a game just to hear what you say, because they're really creative.
Which is funny because before you and I met, we didn't realize that we had season tickets sitting right next to each other.
Oh, I know. That's next section over. How crazy is that?
Yeah, so
Uh,
that worked out good. I remember, just going, "Oh yeah, I sit right here." I'm like, "I've been sitting next to you for how long?" And I
yeah,
didn't know it. That was pretty awesome.
yeah. So let's talk
So
about the Ducks. What's going on this season? I know you're way more on it than I am, so fill me in.
yeah, well, that's what we were going to talk about. Not a lot has happened recently, um, but Eddie and I have been, following it, and we had two signings of Nick Ritchie for 3 years, entry level contract, and Patrick Maroon for 3 years. And Eddie, what do you think about us getting these two for 3 years?
Well, the Nick Ritchie one was kind of always on the cards because he's gonna get that 3 year rookie contract that most of the rookies, the top rookies in the first 10 picks have already gotten their contract, so it was kind of obvious he was gonna eventually get his. But the Maroon one is kind of interesting because he had a very good season last year for the type of player that he is, and he kind of remains an enigma to me because I don't know if he's that guy who's going to be the fourth line kind of fighter, or is he, because he contributed some goals last year, but I don't know if he's going to be a guy who's going to put up points regularly, or he's going to be that kind of scrappy third and fourth line guy or not.
Right. And, Brian, we were talking about this. Heatley comes in. It looks like from our Boudreaux interview that we had that he's going to play on the first line. But if he doesn't play on the first line, it looks like Maroon could play on the first line, Brian.
Wow, I'm good with that. I think Patty did a great job. I think he earned that 3 year contract, and I just can't wait to watch. He's like a young Penner. I can't wait to watch him just grow into that spot. Because he's a big dude, and I like his story too. He's got a great story.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him even if he's not in the first line. Eddie, I don't know if he goes on the fourth. Maybe he'll be able to be on the second or the third. And produce there.
Yeah, like I was reading an article on Hockey News. They put out a couple of predicted stats for some of the players. They said that they predicted Maroon would have 40 points if he had a full season this year. So if he got anywhere close to 40 points, I'd be extremely happy. Like he had a great season last year, only 62 games. I think he was verging on 30 points. He had 29. So yeah,
Right.
it'll be interesting to see how he does this season. He had a great season last year, and yeah, he fully deserves the 3 year extension that he got.
Yeah, and he's going to be important because like we've talked about this before, he's a left winger. We don't have a lot of left wingers. Obviously, we added Heatley, so he's I could see him even being matched up with Kessler, Brian. That's the other big news, of course, was getting Brian Kessler from Vancouver.
Yeah, yeah. Either way, I think you're probably going to see Boudreaux, you know, moving back and forth, and then just kind of feel it out, and just see who's going to click with Heatley because he's a wild card. You don't know what's going to happen with him.
Definitely. The bigger news, I guess, that came from the Ducks, which just happened recently, is we heard from a Finnish reporter that they said that Teemu Selanne was offered 10 million to play 1 year with Jokerit, and they even offered him a secondary deal if he didn't take that deal of 5 million to play the home games. Eddie, what do you think about that?
That's a that's a pretty good deal. I'd take it if I was him. Man. Easy five to $10 million for playing one season. As long as he's there for the on January 11th for the jersey raising, then I'm okay with it. But yeah, I think it's a pretty easy decision. From my perspective, I think he'll probably pick. I can't really say, but the 5 million one for just home games is a pretty sweet deal in my opinion.
Yeah, I
It,
mean,
it leaves it open for his family at home too, because I
Hmm.
think that's going to be the hugest thing for him. Is here he was gearing up towards I can finally be part of my kids' careers, and they're he's a family guy, and I'm shipping everybody back there. I mean, I know they go there to visit, but you'd almost have to move everybody back there if he's going to sign for a year.
yeah, that's true, Brian. I mean, it'd be maybe more likely that he does the 5 million just the home games because then he can probably go back and forth a little bit and not be as much of a strain on the family. But yeah, I definitely see the family decision coming in there and being a major part, if not the main part of his decision. Another part that Eddie and I had talked about too before is we know that Winnick's gone, Hiller's gone, but Koivu's still up in the air and we haven't heard anything. What do you think, Brian, if maybe Koivu goes over there for a year with Selanne and they just, finish their careers there for a year?
I would love that, man. I love both those players. I think Koivu could have had a better send off than that. I mean, that guy's legendary. Like I just I love both those players, and you just never want them to stop. You just want them to keep playing so you can keep watching them.
Yeah, and I would think, Eddy, you probably agree with me on this. I mean, Koivu was obviously overshadowed by Selanne with all the fanfare and the retirement celebrations everywhere he went around the league.
Yeah. I didn't get a real, huge taste of it. I've only been to a couple Ducks games, but when you look at it from the outside, from here, well, when you talk about Anaheim Ducks, anybody here, it's all Teemu. He gets most of the praise from everybody else. So, but yeah, it would be nice to see Koivu join him there if they end up going. That could, along with family, that could play a big part in if he decides to go over there as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm trying to stay on top of the news as fast as I can. I've been reading some of the Finnish articles, and it's just crazy trying to do the Google Translate. Brian. I mean, it's like you said about translating shirts. I'm trying to stay up on everything international because just like your blog and your refusuck.com and you helping us, it's the same thing. I see hits from places all over as far as just trying to stay up on the news.
Yeah, well, Teemu's that guy's got fans everywhere, and he's just such an awesome guy, and he's a lot like Niedermeyer. It doesn't matter where he goes, he's going to have people that love him and respect him, and I would love to see Teemu take a huge payday just because look what he's been playing for the last few years, like a rock star guy like that. Back in the day, there wasn't these contracts that you're seeing now. So it'd be cool for him to get a little piece of that to take with him on into retirement.
Oh yeah, because I mean, according to capgeek.com, he made 10.5 million in the last 3 years, and now he has a chance to do it in one season. Eddy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely going to be enticing for sure. With some of the big deals coming out now, like Brian said, he deals that if he was playing now, that he'd be getting 9 million a year Subban deals if he was in the middle of his career right now. So, it looks pretty enticing from the outside, but it's going to be a tough decision for him.
Hey, Brian, if Teemu doesn't go to Jokerit, doesn't go for the 10-year, the 5 million deal, do you think he retires, or do you think he does something with the Ducks organization, some other type of role?
Yeah, I could see him doing that. The guy, he loves the game and he loves he loves the fans. I mean, every time I've ever seen him at a game where he wasn't playing, he's signing stuff, he's shaking hands, I remember seeing him walking and it was the club level. I think it was just coming off his injury a couple years ago, and he was at every game, but just kind of hanging out. And who does that? Like these guys, you don't see players just go mingle like that, and that kind of says a lot about him, and he loves it. You got to think he enjoys it. He enjoys being around people that love him, and I just think that makes fans attract to him even more, seeing what a real guy he is. And I don't see him going far away from the NHL at all. I mean, I don't see him being a color analyst or anything. But,
right.
But I definitely see him being at the games and being involved with the team for sure.
Yeah, I got to actually meet him one time. Fortunately, they have for the fans that don't know, they have a charity event every year called Ducksnpucks, where the Ducks players go around and they actually help cook with chefs, which was kind of fun because we went when it was Fowler's first season, before he started getting bigger on the Ducks and everything, but also met Teemu. And I have to tell you, he's just very mellow, but, he's nice. You can talk to him, approachable. I mean, a lot of the other players are, of course, too, but it was fun for my wife and I to go see him and talk to him, Eddy.
Yeah, I've never got to meet him. Obviously, I don't have the that much of a chance here, but Yeah, he just looks like he's just that type of guy. He caters to everybody else. He's one of the good guys in hockey. So yeah, it's not surprising to see that from him. And with the role thing too, I really don't see him ever being behind the bench either. He just doesn't seem to be that kind of vocal kind of guy. But I could be wrong. But yeah, he'll be one of the behind the scenes manager guys. But he'll be involved with the Ducks for a while.
Definitely. And speaking of the Ducks and all the moves that they made in the offseason, Brian, what do you think as far as the Ducks' chances? Obviously, you and I went to Game 7 together, which we didn't have the best of times, of course. But with the moves and stuff, what do you think about the Ducks' chances? Do you think they'll get maybe to the Western Conference Finals or the Stanley Cup with the moves that they've made with Kessler and Stoner and and company?
Um, it's yet to be seen. I definitely think they're going to be, in the picture like they always are, as long as they stay healthy. And I'm hoping these latest additions get us some more support in that second line, just to get a little bit of pressure off of Perry and Getzlaf and give those guys a little more space, because it's just, I think one of the questions just popped up. I'm looking at Facebook right now. In your opinion, what do you think went wrong in the second round of the Stanley Cup between the Ducks and the Kings? There was definitely something missing there, and we sat there and I remember sitting there going, "Where are the Ducks? Like,
Yeah.
they look like beat dogs right now. They're just skating slow. They're, you know." And then you got everybody piled on top of Perry and Getzlaf because they're expected to, bring it home. But we got to have some help, and I'm hoping that this Kessler and Heatley thing does the trick.
Yeah, I think Eddie and I talked about this too. And Eddie chime in whenever. I think the face-offs was the big killer because when Brian and I were, I mean, not just Game 7, we watched the other ones too and went to the other ones, but when we were there to sitting together at Game 7, it just seemed like the face-offs is kind of what would go downhill in the beginning, and then it would just snowball, and the Kings just possessed the puck more is what did the Ducks in.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna kind of say is that they kind of just suffocated us. What kind of looked like our trademark through most of the season, we'd get the puck down low and forecheck them and dig the puck out and cycle around the zone, and they kind of just suffocated that first line, and we didn't have any of that, and we couldn't win the face-off in their end to get any kind of decent possession. And they kind of just stifled that first line, and then we didn't really have like a second punch to go out there and have the same kind of impact that Getzlaf and Perry's line usually has for us.
Well, and defense also, there were some problems there because we were backing up and just letting them in the zone, and it just seemed like every time, here come the Kings again. No one's going to stand up. No one's going to keep them out. And I don't know. There's more than just a second line problem. In my opinion, I don't know, what it's going to take, but these young guys we got, the Lindholm and we've got some amazing talent coming up, and just think when they get another year under their belt, you look at Cam Fowler, how much he improved last year, when he had a couple bad seasons or whatever. I don't know. I really have a lot of faith in these kids that they got. I really like Lindholm. I think that guy is going to be a stud for sure. He doesn't have the size, but he's smart, really smart player. And, I hope the D improves and watches the tape, because they definitely need to be bigger.
Yeah, and the one thing we're lacking if you're comparing from now to the Stanley Cup run in '07 is that lack of a stud guy on defense like a Niedermayer or a Pronger. And that's kind of one thing that everybody's been calling for since we lost both of them. Stoner is a good addition, but right now it looks like we're gonna have to have one of those young guys step up and take that top four role, because we've got Boscheman, Fowler, who are the main two guys, and then it kind of trails off from there. We got to have Lindholm hopefully step up this year, gain some muscle, and be an imposing force on the blue line, and improve on his rookie season last year.
Eddie, we got another question from a guy named actually Prince in Hawaii, of all places, asking about Stoner. and wondering how Stoner will do on the offense and defense this year. What do you think? Is he going to help out on both sides of the puck, or just defense, or what?
Um, it based on what he's done before, offense doesn't look very likely. Uh, he's in that kind of age now where more physical, bigger defensemen kind of adapt more to playing the puck out of their own end. But he's not gonna, contribute more than 15 points. His impact's really gonna be seen on the penalty kill and, digging the puck out in the corners and getting it out to people can start the play. So I don't see him contributing anything at all really to the offense. That's why we brought in guys like Heatley, and hopefully Lindholm can have the same, if not a better season that he had last year. And if Vaughton can step up and contribute to the offense too. He's not really there for the offense. He's there for a big imposing force on the ice, and when everybody knows he's out there.
Right, and if Stoner takes over and takes Allen's spot, then Eddie, do you think maybe Allen or Fistrick, being the seventh and eighth defensemen on the outside, maybe they do get traded with a prospect or someone else for a big name defensive player?
Yeah, if anybody gets traded, I think if you're between the two picking, it's probably Allen. Fistrick's kind of owned that seventh role, and I think Allen's better than a seventh defenseman. It's not really, and then his I believe his contract is still $3.5 million. So keeping that on there as a seventh guy who's not going to really play it isn't the best decision, even if we're pretty decent in cap space.
Yeah, and what do you think as far as, do you think we would make another move now, or do you think we'd try to make it before the trade deadline, Eddie?
I think if any move gets made now, it's gonna have to come soon or at the trade deadline, or maybe a piece move throughout the season if a team needs a defenseman. But yeah, if a move doesn't get made anytime soon, maybe early September, then it's probably near the trade deadline.
And Brian, is there any big defensive players out there that you would like the Ducks to go after if we trade Allen and a prospect or whoever?
Man, I don't. You know, good defensemen are really expensive, and I just don't know what the Ducks have to offer that they're willing to offer to bring in big time, big name guy like that. I really, I got to go to a lunch thing with Scott Niedermayer speaking, and when it came down to Q&A, I had to I'm like, okay, I got to come up with something. I'm never going to get the chance to talk to this guy, right?
Right.
So I stood up and I said, I'm in this room full of people, and I don't know anyone there except a couple people, and I'm just like, all right, if you remember last season, the Ducks, would we have like a 20 game home streak? I mean, it was just
Yeah.
Right. We had such an amazing season during the season last year, and I'm like, all right, I know you're involved. What's going on? Like, why are these kids so good? And the guy just laughed and he's like, it's not me, it's them. And I'm like, come on, like you're a coach. Like I'm not buying that.
Well, yeah, because I mean, Fowler stayed. I don't know if he still is, but he was staying with Niedermayer.
Right, right, and that guy is a big part of why these kids have been so good. And I mean, I just think give them, if you look at the season they had, it's going to be good this year. I think both Vatanen and Lindholm are going to have great seasons, and they're smart. It's not the big gritty pronger, I'm going to punch you in the face. It's smart defensemen that are fast, and same with Fowler. Fowler's a fast freaking skater. If those guys can be technical and figure out how to score a few, that's going to be huge for the Ducks.
Yeah, and if you look at their development, more so in Fowler, you can see the influence from Scott Niedermayer in his game. Because when Fowler first came to the Ducks, he was basically 100% offense. His defense was pretty much lacking. That's why he slipped down to us in the draft. And then over the last few seasons, especially last season, he's shored up his defensive responsibilities, and that has to attribute to the experience and the tutoring from Scott Niedermayer. And you could see it early on in Lindholm's game last year too. He was very strong in his own end, and I think he finished with plus 33 or something. So yeah, Niedermeyer definitely, if he doesn't want to admit it, he definitely has an influence on the young defenseman in the Ducks organization.
Yeah, I wasn't buying it, but that's Scotty. You know, he's not going to ever take the credit. He just wants to give it to everyone else. But uh, we're so lucky to have a guy, a legend like that, involved with these young guys, because that's just you can't buy that. You know, that's that's just other teams would kill to have a guy like that in the background.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even though he was only with the Ducks for a handful of seasons, I mean, obviously led us all the way to the Stanley Cup. And like you said, he's just a good not only player but teacher all around. That I think is going to help us out. And Eddie, do you think if we stick with the defense we have now, and going with Niedermeyer leading the charge on his coaching front, do you think the Ducks get to the Stanley Cup?
It's hard to say. I don't think we should sell the farm to go out and get one of these top four guys. Um, I think we said in the last podcast, I want to see the second season from Lindholm. I want to see Votanen's season. I want to see how Fowler can come off his season last year. So there's no reason to go out and buy a guy that we might already have in a top four defenseman with Lindholm in his sophomore season. So with the guys we have, I think we can make it back to the playoffs. It just depends on how they play this year. If they can play the same, if not better than they did, I don't see why we can't beat the LA Kings or Chicago Blackhawks, St. Louis Blues in the playoffs to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, and then it's really from there. If we can get to the finals, there's not many teams in the East that got better this year. You know, Boston got a little bit worse. Montreal is pretty much the same. The Rangers, although making it to the finals last year, didn't really impress me too much. Lundqvist kind of carried the load. So if the young guys can step up, with the additions of Kessler and Thompson and Stoner, I think we can make a charge like we did last season.
Yeah, definitely. And Brian, what do you think as far as carrying the load? Do you think Gibson or Anderson will carry the load for the Ducks going next year?
I think you're going to see, if you remember back when Jaguar and Hiller had to compete for it, I think that's what you're going to see. I think Bruce is going to give them both a crack at it, and I see huge promise in both those kids. They're both going to be phenomenal goaltenders.
Yeah, Eddie and I talked about it before. I'm leaning more towards Gibson. Eddie's leaning more towards Anderson, and I guess you're down the middle, Brian. So we'll just call it a tie, huh, Eddie?
Yeah. I want to see Gibson start. It's just I don't know where LaBarber's gonna go. I don't know where he's gonna fit in that with Gibson being on the only goalie on the two-way contract. I think Anderson gets the start, but I'd like to see Gibson play at least 30 games, if not more, in the season because he had a great season, but only with a limited kind of sample size last year. So I think he's our top goalie prospect, and it would be great to see him get some significant playing time this year.
Yeah, I think either one of them, if they get really hot, I think the Ducks can ride either one of them. This is my opinion, but I think the Ducks can ride either one of them at least to the Western Conference Finals, Brian.
Yeah, well, Gibson got a pretty fancy new helmet, so I'm hoping to see that on TV.
Both did. I know that was a poll question we did this week, and it was kind of funny. Not a lot of people were really too impressed with Anderson's mask. They actually liked Gibson's Pac-Man mask, and they liked Hiller's Darth Vader mask.
Yeah.
Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of polls too, there was a poll on NBC Sports recently too. It was what is the biggest concern for the Ducks this season? I wanted to kind of get your guys' input on what do you think the biggest concern is. A couple options they had were lack of things we've already kind of discussed: a lack of a stud defenseman, absence of proven experience in goal. Bruce Boudreau's inability to win it all, and the health of Ryan Kessler. I wonder if you guys had any input on what would our biggest concern be for the season.
Yeah, Kessler kind of concerned me in that way. He has been beat up. He's 29, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's still got some miles left. I don't know what his health issues were. I've never followed Kessler that closely. I've always been, when he comes on the ice, you got to watch him kind of thing. But I'm not sure what his injuries were or what they are. You guys might know better than I do. But that was my only concern with him. I really hated to see Bonino get dealt. Like, that's another player that I really like watching come up and just get stronger and better. So I kind of had mixed emotions, but he's healthy now, so hopefully he stays that way.
Yeah, for me, Eddie, part of it, and this is what some of the fans, I know Brian's heard this from some fans too, is with Boudreaux, when we got him, my concern is you get this guy from Washington. He's taken that team to the number one, number two seed in the East almost every season he's there, but he never gets past the second round of the playoffs. And, it happened the last two seasons. So for me, I'm not really too concerned about the defense, the goalie, or the offense. I'm more concerned about him pushing the team beyond that second round. I mean, I know we were so close last year, and obviously that first game against the Kings killed us with the 7 seconds left. But that's my concern, Eddie.
Yeah, he's shown that he can win, but he hasn't shown that he can make it that one step further into the conference finals. And he's had good teams. The Ducks obviously have been a good team. He had Ovechkin when Ovechkin was playing at a high level, and he's had good teams both times around. So I think he can make it all the way. It's hard to just put all the weight on his shoulders too, though.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not just all him. It's going to be the team on a whole, of course. That's just my concern. I like Boudreaux, and I hope that we do go at least to the Western Conference Finals. I mean, I want that to at least happen because I know some other people that I've talked to, and Brian's probably heard too. Just a little bit of chirping, saying, okay, well, he does great in the regular season, but what about the playoffs?
Well, he's got a short NHL career too. I think the guy's done phenomenal with the Ducks. I mean, I'm sure we all three complained a lot about Carlyle in his last couple of years with the Ducks, and just that stale, you just predictable play that you just could every shift. It was like, come on, seriously. So I was stoked to get Boudreaux over here, and I love his demeanor. I love I don't know. I just think he gets guys to work, and I've enjoyed having him as a coach for sure.
Yeah, I agree, Brian, and that's why I'm hoping that we do go farther, just so because not everybody that's a fan is always positive. I mean, we all three of us, I know we try to look at the positive side of things as opposed to some people, and I just want I want the Ducks to beat the Kings. I mean, I want to play them in the playoffs again. I want to beat them so bad you don't even understand, and go another round because I'm just tired of hearing either whether it's Kings fans or some disgruntled Duck fans. It's like we can do it, Eddie. We just gotta push through in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, Bruce Boudreau, he's so far on his winning percentage, he's been the most winningest coach in Ducks history. It's not at the same games coach as other ones, but he's only behind Carlyle, and I agree with Brian on that the Carlyle thing. I see it a lot from him now with a lot of the Toronto games I see here. He plays that stale kind of stale, boring style that's just too predictable, and it's you see it with how Toronto's struggling now. But yeah, I'm definitely happy with what Bruce has done. It's just to see if he can continue that success into the playoffs too.
Yeah, Eddie and Brian, we got another fan question from Alex in Huntington Park, and he asked about actually Babcock and Carlyle, comparing them from the 2003 run to the 2007 run. And Brian, what do you think? Do you think that Babcock did better in 03 or Carlyle in 07? Yeah, it's a tough one.
I don't even know if I can go there, man. That's
it's a tough.
Man, I'm gonna pass. I can't go either way.
All right, Eddie, what do you think?
It's kind of the same thing. It's hard, Babcock was only there for for a few years from '02 to '04. And he didn't have the best of teams either, and he took that team to the Stanley Cup Finals. And then it trailed off after there after Korea left, and then Carlyle, they struggled for a while. They picked up Pronger, Niedermayer's there, and they ultimately win the Stanley Cup. It's hard to, because if Babcock wins that cup, it's really, there's no question. It's Babcock, but
Right.
it's kind of too close to tell, really.
No, I mean, I agree. I think, and that's why Brian was having a tough time, and I agree with both of you. I mean, it is tough, especially because, I mean, if you go by who won, okay, we lean towards Carlisle and we say, okay, the Ducks won '07, so he's better. But the only reason I would lean a little bit more towards Babcock is just because you had the Ducks team that year that was the seventh seed, and it wasn't expected to go far. We played, the defending champs, Red Wings, sweep them and then go on. So to me, I mean, obviously we lost in 7 games, granted. And, Eddie, you and I talked with Phil about that, though, and on last week, and that series could have gone either way. The home team won every game, and if the Ducks would have played the home game 7, maybe they win that one.
Yeah, exactly. And then this isn't even a really a discussion, but I guess you just kind of look at the teams. Both coaches had their struggles, but Carlisle is the only one who had that real contender under his belt. That team that finished high in the season, and then they kind of stormed their way to the cup. Like I said before, it's kind of too hard for me to tell, and I don't really want to pick because of that. So I don't know. It's too close for me.
All
Well,
right.
it's hard to give it all the credit to Carlisle too,
Yeah.
because I mean the core guys, I mean the shutdown guys we had were just unbelievable. Like you couldn't score a power play goal on the Ducks that season,
Yeah.
and that says a lot about you got to look at the troops. You got to look who are blocking those shots and who are shutting those guys down. Maybe some direction from Carlisle, but man, that combo that year was just crazy,
Yeah.
crazy to think about what they
That
did.
team could have coached themselves too, with Niedermayer, Selanne, and Pronger on it too. So it's kind of hard to like you said, to give all the credit to Carlisle there.
Oh man. Well, we'll just wrap up with a little bit of other news in the league here, and I guess next season they're going to have another outdoor game in California, but we are not going to be in it, Eddie. It's going to be the Kings and the Sharks.
I kind of like, obviously I want to see the Ducks playing it, but they're gonna give it to the moneymakers, the team that's at least accumulated more fans in the recent years with the Kings, and then they're just giving the Sharks their chance at being in it. So I couldn't really see them doing a Kings and Ducks once again. And obviously, if you're gonna pick somebody to make you more money of between the Ducks and Kings and who's gonna be in it, they're gonna pick the Kings. So it's not really a huge surprise, but I'm kind of glad that they're not doing. It was kind of rumored that they're gonna do like 5 or 6 outdoor games. It kind of gets old when you do that. You want to have maybe one or two, the Winter Classic, then this one Stadium Series or a game. But yeah, I'm not 100%. I'm not really surprised the Ducks aren't in one this year, but it would be nice to see them in another one.
Have you heard of any other outdoor games next year besides the Winter Classic and that one? Those are the only two I've heard of so far, Eddie.
Yeah, I don't know. There's always a Heritage Classic game here that's usually out west
Right.
between I think it was Vancouver, Ottawa last year, and they do the
Right.
Winter Classic, and then they had a lot of Stadium Series games last year. But other than that, I've only really heard of the Winter Classic, which I don't know who's in it this year, and then this Stadium Series game, and then there's going to be a Heritage Classic one again. But that's all I've really heard of.
Well, you know what I'm hoping is I'm hoping next, not this season, Brian, but the following season. I hope there's an outdoor game with the Ducks and the Sharks, and we go to Angel Stadium and we watch that.
I'm down.
Yeah. That would be awesome. I mean, they could totally do it. Anaheim Stadium almost holds 50,000. The other news that came out, Eddie and I talked about Subban last week and how he didn't come to a contract, and we had talked about that going to arbitration. And then just shortly after we had finished the podcast, the news had come out. So Eddie, they finally rectified that situation. Subban got his big deal, and what do you think?
It's I still agree that it's a weird situation. Like, I don't know how you become so far apart on a guy like Subban. Montreal's offering him They think he's worth 5.5. Subban and his agent think he's worth 8.5. They don't agree on anything. They go to arbitration, and then it looks to be that he's going to get a 1-year deal. They both agree on a 1-year deal. The arbitrator's just got to come up with the money, and then a day before he's supposed to come up with it, they agree on a massive 8-year deal for $9 million per year. It's just weird. I don't know how they didn't come up with that earlier. But it just comes down to the Montreal's too scared really to lose a guy like Subban, and in the end they couldn't not agree with the money he wanted. You'd rather lock him down for 8 years than risk losing him in free agency in a couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we talked about this on the podcast last week when right before the news came out, we were saying, hey, you got to figure this out. You have a guy that is just killing it with that blue line slap shot. And price goes down. Maybe he doesn't. We talked about they might beat the Rangers and then play the Kings in the finals.
Yeah, and he's the face of your franchise too. And really the guy who's going to lead you on the blue line for the the next 8 years. They lost Georges to Buffalo, and I think Markov's still there. And then it's just Subban. Subban's going to be the guy. He led them in the points in the playoffs. So, that your defenseman's not really supposed to lead you in points in the playoffs, but when he does and how well he's been, you don't usually take these kind of guys to arbitration. But I guess in the end, it worked out for mostly Subban for now. But when you look at this deal 4 years from now with the cap increasing, this deal is going to look like Crosby's deal does now. So it's going to be a steal in the future.
Definitely. Well, that's going to wrap up our show for this time. Brian, thanks for coming on here. Thanks for helping me get all this rolling and joining us this week.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys, and make sure, if you don't already, follow Brian. He's at Twitter at RefUSuck. Also, check out his website, refusuck.com, and we'll be back with you next week.
The Anaheim Ducks are the Stanley Cup champions.